You're listening to Fan Club and nothing else.
Let's talk about Lost Boys 3, The Thirst. You just finished shooting. You were just in South Africa. Can you tell us anything about the movie, or is it all under wraps?
Well, I can tell you a little bit. I can tell you that this will be the official return of the Frog Brothers, which is very exciting.
Okay.
I can tell you that this film is definitely a lot bigger than the last one. It looks great. I think it's going to look and sound amazing. The special effects, the stunts, we did a lot of wire work. There's a lot of CGI in this, which I know some of the older movie buff fans may not be a fan of, but for the new generation, I think it's exactly what's called for. And it certainly is going to live up to the expectations of today's modern movie-going audience.
Okay.
It's got some great stuff. I think it really brings the story back together in a way that, it kind of long since departed with the last one. And it helps tie it all up in a nice little bow. So I think it's got a new energy. It's got a new look. I mean, it feels and looks quite different than the other films in some ways. And I think much closer to what the comic book tried to bring forward,
right.
Quite honestly.
Yeah, Reign of Frogs, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Now, you were shooting in South Africa. Can we take this to mean that it's taking place in South Africa?
No, it's actually meant to still take place in California.
Okay.
We just used Africa because of the exotic locales and really their expertise in stunts and special effects. I mean, I think we all use District 9 as a bit of a guideline for what they're capable of and the ingenious that they've kind of created out there. They really have their own brand of special effects and stunts, which, is really the key point, I think, of what, we were gaining from being there.
Okay.
Of course, the aesthetic as well.
Right. Now, as you said, this is sort of like the return of the Frog Brothers in full, so I take it that Alan Frog's going to, play a nice hand in this. Is Corey Haim going to making an appearance in this? Because he did have that sort of cameo at the end of the second movie. Does that get paid off at all?
Well, it gets explained, but there is no Corey Haim in this film.
Okay. And you were saying previously that you've got more creative control in this movie than you did on The Tribe, and you want to give the fans what they want. And I was just wondering if you wanted to say sort of what your agenda was as far as, like, what did you really want to improve on specifically from the second one to the third one?
Well, I wouldn't say, let's back it up for a second. I wouldn't say creative control, I would say creative input.
Okay.
Because it is a collaborative effort, and although I was an executive producer, there were many executive producers on the project, and so, I certainly have my say, but it's not like it's a Corey Feldman film, you know what I mean?
Right, okay.
That said, I lent my hand wherever possible, and I think the thing that I pushed for from the beginning was certainly more of the Frog Brothers, because I think that's really what people want to see. I mean, based on, the internet blogs and the emails and things like that I receive, it's always pretty clear that the driving force that people want to see is the return of the Frog Brothers. So we were very careful in wanting to bring that to the screen. The other things that I think are very important are going back to the lore of how it all started, what it's all about, how this all began, and where it's all headed. That's all kind of brought to the forefront in this film. And we also vastly, I think, improved the look of the vampires themselves. I wasn't particularly fond of the look of the vampires in the second film. I thought they were a little bit over the top, and I think the fans agree with that. So we did our best to kind of bring it back to a much more organic kind of a feel, a more naturalistic-looking vampire as opposed to something that's as extravagant-looking as it was in the last film.
Excellent. What was...
And there's certainly, I can tell you this, there's more scares, more blood and gore, more nudity, more violence. I mean, it's kind of everything that you would expect from a teenage vampire film today.
Excellent. Well, now that Lost Boys is on to its third movie, you had said earlier that, it sort of ties everything up. I mean, how far do you see this going as a franchise? Do you have plans to be in a fourth? Would you be interested?
Well, I think it's kind of open-ended at the moment. I mean, this is really a rebirth of the franchise, even more so than the last one was. Obviously, the last one was kind of the kicking off point.
Right.
But this one really is taking it to the next level, and not only taking it to the next level, but giving it a new life and a new energy. The look and the style with Dario Piano has done with this film visually is certainly worlds apart from where we were in the last film, or even the first film, being that it was shot in the 80s. They used great, equipment and technical capabilities in this film. The engineering of the camera work and the types of cameras and lenses and everything that we were using, it's just got a very big and broad feel to it, which is nice. And additionally, I think, we've established some new characters, some new storylines that seem to kind of fit together and tie in better with the franchise and the series than the last film did. So I think we've vastly improved in a lot of areas, and I think that, kind of with this newfound luster that you're going to find with the Frog Brothers, I think it kind of sets the stage for them to go on a series of adventures, and anything is possible. So I certainly wouldn't be opposed to continuing the franchise if we can keep moving up in a positive direction.
Excellent. And my last question is just, so you were just filming in South Africa for this, and I was just wondering, a lot of times when crews either come from Hong Kong to America or America to Europe, there's this sort of cultural difference, especially on a movie set, and, what everyone's role is and how everyone gets treated and everything. I was just wondering if you had anything interesting in South Africa that's just different from working in Hollywood, as a different sort of experience that you noticed.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the entire vibe, as you mentioned, culturally is completely different. You're dealing with still a third world country that, obviously, is very kind of poor and behind the times. And, I learned a lot being there. But the one thing that I was very impressed by and pleased by was the professionalism and the seriousness of the crew and how they respect and are grateful for their jobs. In Hollywood, everybody's intimidated. This is what you do, and everybody's kind of been doing it forever, and, you just kind of go from one job to the next. Whereas there, these people are truly all artists in their field, and they're very proud of their work, and they take their work very seriously. And I was very honored to have such a diligent, hardworking, and exciting crew to work with. Every day when you came in, you knew that they were going to be on top of their game. There was never a complaint from any of them about the long hours, and we were working very long hours. So, it's all in all, it turned into a very positive experience. Culturally, the society as a whole was a bit kind of dumbfounding for me. It was a certain step back to realize, hey, we're not in Kansas anymore, because you look around you, and there's a lot of segregation, in South Africa, which I think people don't realize is the case. You think of it as mostly a black-driven community because it's Africa, when in the reality of it is it's very much a white-dominated populace. And, if you've seen District 9 and you see all the footage of, them living in those sheds and stuff, those are real. I mean, with those places where the aliens live, those are actually the townships where most of the local Nigerians live. Right. So you kind of have all the white people living kind of normal, rich, fancy lives with their houses that are all gated and behind barbed wires. And then you have, the local Nigerians who are all kind of forced behind these barbed wire fences and living in these huts. And it's overwhelming. I mean, I was certainly awestruck to learn of the vast difference of the culture. Also, it's a very conservative culture, which, you wouldn't expect because you kind of hear about South Africa as being a very open-minded place with lots of beautiful women and all that stuff, but it was surprisingly very sheltered and kind of backwards from everything we know in America. So it was certainly an eye-opening experience for me. As whenever you travel out of the country and you spend some time, getting to know the people and their cultures and how they live and how they exist, it's always a rewarding and eye-opening experience, and this certainly didn't disappoint in that area.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Great. Well, that's sort of the end of my questions. So thank you again for taking the